Now, time, like we promised, to take a look at what the international and local newspapers have on their front pages. And I have with me here in the studio Dr. Constance Ikoku, who will introduce our guest. Glad to have you this morning, Constance.
Thank you, Ndi. Thanks for having me. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Well, a very good day. I hope it's the beginning of the day. Well, to look at the newspapers today, with us we have Chuks Akuna. He is the Executive Director of Authority newspaper. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Yeah. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day newspaper. In this day, we'll be looking at the story. NCC issues guidelines on Telecom's tariff plans and promotional activities. We'll also merge it and look at the other story there. EFCC report, windfall tax amid industry recapitalization will break banks. So the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, says guidelines on tariff plans, bundles and promotional materials must be simplified to help consumers make informed decisions. They have to be easy to understand, clear and accurate information about the cost of voice short messaging service. Consumers should also have clear information about how to opt in or opt out, conditions for renewal, rollover details, and add-ons. I mean, this is in order, isn't it? Years ago, it used to be pretty simple and straightforward to navigate telephone companies, but these days you're being overwhelmed by so many different messages, unclear, so you don't even know what we are doing, isn't it, Chuks?
Yes, exactly. It's very good that the NCC has come up to speak out on these matters, because even as seemingly informed that some of us are, we just subscribe, we just pay, we don't know what we're paying for. So if people like us don't even know what we're paying for, you can imagine what the ordinary man on the street is going through. And it's very easy, they say little drops of water fills the mighty ocean. When we 1 naira here, 2 naira there, we think it's peanuts. But when you add this up to say like 10 million subscribers, it's a kill for telecom companies. And you see, if you in life generally, people don't hand you your rights. You have to ask for your rights. And it's good that the regulatory authority is coming to say, no, you must break this down for people to understand. No fine prints, because we are used to having fine prints in most organizations in Nigeria, so you don't even know what to buy and what not to buy.
It's like when you're filling or signing documents, they have this 10 pages that at the bottom sign. You don't have time to look through it, you just sign, and then maybe something happens, the lawyer contacts you and says, this is what you signed up to, and then you're very surprised. Well, you have the regulator, and part of the job of the regulator is to make sure that there aren't sharp practices, that consumers are not being abused in the market, that things are clear, and that's what we're trying to get here. The NCC, has it done a fairly good job over the years, indeed, do you think?
Well, you still have drop calls, you still have the operators not working effectively. I think that should even be what should concern the NCC more, because that's mainly the complaints that people have when it comes to calls and messaging. But it's interesting, even now you pointed out long story, sign, you don't know what is there, so now maybe to simplify it, that could go a long way. But more importantly, I was watching a film yesterday on television, and
you're always watching films.
Well, you don't want me to watch films?
No, I'm just saying, whatever we're discussing, he's watching films.
If I go to cinemas, at least I can watch films in my house. I learn 1 or 2 things, like what I'm talking about now.
Okay.
So, there was an accident, and this insurance people they were just hurrying people to sign paper, without wanting them to read through it. And one that signed got into trouble. When a lawyer looked at it, said, you should never have signed this. So I guess for those reasons, NSCC is trying to do what they're doing now. We'll hope that we see the outcome. But most importantly, I think they should get the operators to be up and doing in their services to the people.
There is definitely a question of quality, and there's also the scramble for customers these years. In those days, it used to be MTN, having a very large share of the market. There are other companies as well. But what you see is that there seems to be a scramble that everyone is overwhelmed with attempts by different companies to woo customers. And in the midst of it, you have multiple messages that most times you do not want. And sometimes they are confusing, and sometimes you do not know how to opt out. So a very good move by the NCC. We'll also look at the story EFC report on this day still. Windfall tax amid industry recapitalization will break banks. We've been discussing this story for about 2 weeks now, and it's about the windfall tax that even Chief Otedola supported. But this report is saying that it will be damaging to banks and it should not be happening. Chooks, your thoughts?
No, exactly. Whatever is going to affect banks now, I tell you, it's bad news because...
well, banks are saying, others are saying they should be paying it. I think banks are fighting back for their lives.
Exactly, because we're talking about banks, scampering for oxygen, as well, financial oxygen, in the light of moves by the CBN to make them recapitalize. So I guess whatever is going to make banks, sweat more, these days, it's unwelcome by them.
But, well, you do have a point. Go on, Undi.
Yeah. For me, the thing about ideas is that when they're thrown out there, the first reaction is it won't work. And the second reaction, it looked like it was going to work. And finally, when it works, the reaction lately would then be that I did believe that it was going to work really at the beginning, So it's neither here nor there. Different strokes for different folks. But what the government is trying to do here, I guess, is to get the bank to give back to the system. The banks might reject it, because the talk has been, are the banks really doing what they should do in terms of propping up the economy, in terms of helping manufacturers, SMEs, because these are the people that make the economy grow, to do their business. Are the bank really doing the functions of banking, the core functions of banking? So is the argument against that of the government, and a chief of First Bank, Otedola, is for it. So we see that how it plays out. But whatever happens, it must not be done in such a way that banks are the worst off for it.
Right. So here it says, poor policy decisions shrink in shareholders' net worths, declares CBN should be worried over development. I think part of the conversation here is that when you make policies, you have to take time to think them through, and then you have to give people notice, and then eventually the policies come into existence. During that time, there are discussions with supposed stakeholders. There's a back and forth. If you need to tweak the policy, you do that. I think on this particular point, it wasn't done. It's a retroactive policy, and that is part of the reasons why people are kicking. But as you said, well, when a policy comes into force or comes into existence, the reaction might be it will not work, and then the discussions go on, and then somewhere in the middle they land, and we'll go from there. So I think it's an unfolding story, so we'll be hearing more about it.
I think you were also talking about, you were asking, I remember last time we discussed, you were asking, can the banks go to the courts?
Right.
Yes. Because you were talking about being a retroactive.
Yes.
So we'll see what plays out.
Yes. All right. Let's look at our next story. It will be in Daily Trust. Daily Trust, federal government issues travel advisory to Nigerians visiting the UK. This was contained in a statement by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson yesterday. There is an increased risk, I'm quoting the ministry, there is an increased risk of violence and disorder occasioned by the recent riots in the UK, stemming from the killing of 3 young girls at a concert, the advisory said. It also said to contact the High Commission via email or number if someone is in trouble. So I'll read out the email of the High Commission, hc@nigeriahc.org.uk. Again, it's hc@nigeriahc.org.uk. And the number to call also in the UK is +44 207 8391 244. Again, +44 207 8391 244. And so it used to be that the Americans and the British and other countries give travel alert, you know, to their nationals traveling to Africa or coming to Africa or to Nigeria, you know, about, you know, protests and disturbances. Now, the table has turned. It is Nigeria issuing an alert. Chooks, what do you make of this?
No, exactly. When I saw that yesterday, I chuckled. You know, it's very interesting because it's a case of turning the tables. You know, we used to, each time, you know, the Western governments will issue travel advisories to their citizens.
And those advisories are usually dreadful. When you read them.
No, if you read those advisories, you think you are supposed that the whole streets in Nigeria are filled with terrorists and, you know, and what have you. But, you know, that said, it also goes to show that there are good people everywhere and there are bad people everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
We saw what the role of social media, you know, in this crisis. You know, after the girls were killed, there was this post by some persons that the attackers were Muslims and that they were asylum seekers. So that has naturally provoked rage among Britons. You know, they feel very terrible about it, and even though when it's a lie. So Nigerians, people of color, are now primarily the targets in this country. So it's also good. And some persons will now who don't have strong enough reason to travel to the UK will stay back and see if we fix Nigeria.
That's an interesting take on things. However, hopefully that when people are in trouble and they contact the High Commission, they'll get the help they need, including evacuation if and when necessary. The terrible thing is when you try to contact the High Commission, they're not available and they cannot help you. Have we thought about that too, Indeed?
Now, this is doing what they should do. I mean, you expect that the Foreign Affairs Ministry should tell its people the risk of traveling at this time, because it's really serious. I mean, in Britain, and then talking about the dangers of social media. Daily Express, I was listening to paper review yesterday, I think it was on BBC, and Daily Express had on its front page, Elon Musk says that war is inevitable in Britain, and I'm saying, why would Elon Musk be saying this kind of thing? Don't people reason before they talk? It's another man's country. You're in America, and you're trying to provoke war through your comments. Somebody at that level, and that's what instigated this riots in Britain. The guy is not an immigrant. He is not a Muslim. He was born and bred in Britain. He's 17 years old. The police have come out to say that. So there's no question of terrorism. So what the Foreign Affairs of Nigeria is doing is all right. I mean, it's left for Nigerians now to decide whether they should, you know, travel in spite of the warning or stay back. But like Chooks has said, stay back here.
And fix your country. I mean, you know, when you go to, you know, Nigerian gatherings, whether it's locally or internationally, there's always that discussion about what do we need to do about our country so that we have a country that works and people don't need to run away. You know, if you want to travel, it's a choice. You travel by choice. Maybe you want to travel for holiday or for studies, and you come back to your country with, you know, the sense that you have a fair, you know, standard of living in your own country. That should be the case. That for now is not the case.
That's the expectation of the end, the hashtag end in bad governance.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, and talking about fake news and tweaking things. Again, I think it was CNN, and what the reporter used was hashtag Days of Rage.
Right.
Which was wrong. I mean, that's what you get from social media. But the truth is, what I believe they should have said is end bad governance or take back movement, which was what this is all about.
But what is happening in the UK also, I think it mirrors the entire Europe, you know, the volatile situation across the continent. You have levels of or standard of living falling drastically and people looking for scapegoats. You have social ills rising and people blaming their government and saying, you are not listening to us, you're not doing what we want. So you have all this far right group propping up. It's going to be a scary place in the coming years because there are no indications that it will stop. Look at the crackdown on this far-right group. It's been difficult for the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, to clamp down on them. The police is trying, but they might stop them temporarily, but this wave across Europe, it's going to continue.
That's why
Chooks, don't you think?
Yes, yes. You see, and coming back home to Nigeria, you see the end bad governance riots or protests. If you look at particular states in the north, you see, Governor Zulum of Borno State. He reached the point of despair where he said 95% of the so-called protesters are underage. So it also, highlights the problem we have with out-of-school children in Nigeria. And you see, like there was this trending video of a lad who stole a police signboard in Kano. And we saw what happened yesterday in Kaduna, where rioters overwhelmed an armored personnel carrier. So it's a problem. See, if we don't fix these problems now, if we don't fix these problems yesterday, we'll stand to regret, because you see, it's going to be it's definitely an ill wind that's going to blow nobody any good.
And just
so the airline will do that.
Yeah, just to say that when you look at the protests in Nigeria, most of those people have nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly, because that one.
No. If you're talking about the rioters, not the protests.
The young people. No, I'm not talking about riots.
Yes.
We're talking about the young people that are pouring into the streets, that are facing very difficult times. You look at them, you see that they don't have anything to lose.
No, but their parents and their guardians, they are feeling the pinch too.
How many people have parents and guardians with all the damages caused by bandits, Boko Haram over the years? There's so many people that are homeless, in IDP camps, have no parents. There's a lot going on.
Now that's why, sorry, Chooks, that's why any responsible government, whether here in Africa or abroad, should really change their mentality. Politics is a tool for doing good, helping the people, raising their living standards. So leaders should be listening. I'm now talking about the protest. When people are rising up, aside the riots, when people are rising up and telling you that we're not comfortable with your policies, we're not comfortable, we're suffering, it's too much, we don't even know where the ceiling is going to be. As a leader, you must step back and really sit down and think and ask yourself, am I really giving the people what they want? Are they getting the dividends of democracy? And not just to feel that you go ahead and do whatever you want to do. That is a dangerous trend.
To be fair, sometimes people think that once you have 50,000 naira, 100,000 naira, you're rich, you're made, because of lack of education. And that's why you see most of these crimes. You see, people we killed, I think a few years ago, Senator's son was killed in Kaduna, and they went and sold his SUV for 650,000. For them, 650,000 is a lot of money, because they've invested such a quantum of money in their lives. So we have to really ask ourselves these questions. What plans do we have for our children? Because children 5 years ago, 10 years ago, are no longer children today. If you're driving through the streets of Abuja, you see, urchins everywhere. They are harassing you.
It wasn't so before.
No, it wasn't.
No, it happened.
It wasn't.
After Buhari became president.
Yes.
So they said, Sugar Bankasa, that one money, that is our brother. We're going to Abuja. They thought that coming to Abuja, and they were literally going to be picking gold on the streets. On the streets of Abuja. So they are here, they're in Abuja, they are disillusioned. And that's why no matter the kind of efforts the FCT administration, puts in Abuja, no matter the amount of road network you build, you see, it's going to be overwhelmed, because people are leaving their states on account of insecurity, on account of what they call the bright lights theory in sociology, because they feel like when they come here, life is better.
Right.
And they come here, they're so disillusioned, so they end up selling sachet water.
And they live on the streets in the midst of splendor.
So you can imagine,
yes,
they see very beautiful SUVs driving around, and they have no share of this. So whenever there's an uprising, there's a problem. They point to the street, like Dr. Constance said, they have nothing to lose. So they level everything so that they are par with these people who they suppose have stolen them blind.
There was also the case of the IDPs. there are so many IDPs around Abuja. So when people were being displaced from their communities in the north, people were brought into this IDP camps.
And abandoned.
So eventually, yes, eventually they had to begin to come into town and see that, well, people in the city live, you know, in opulence. Yeah. And that contrast, that disparity between the rich and the poor is wide, is getting wider, and it is problematic for the country. I guess, well, that's why this End Bad Governance protest is going on. Let's move on to New Telegraph this morning. Reps dissolve disputed ad hoc petroleum probe committee. This ad hoc downstream and midstream committee was investigating adulterated petroleum products and non-availability of crude oil for domestic refineries. It's been disbanded, and a statement from the House says that people, in quote, of competence, expertise, and integrity will be set up to complete the assignment. This statement also said the House is committed to addressing vital issues and oversight. The committee members have been in a brawl over cause for the sack of Group CEO of NMPCL, Mele Kyari, and CEO of NMDPRA, Farouk Ahmed, that's his name, right?
Yep.
Yeah, some members of the committee believe that the two men should be let go, while others say that will compromise the neutrality of the committee. While this controversy had been brewing for a while, remember when the NMPDR boss, NNPDRA boss. It's a mouthful.
It's a tongue twister.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. Because of the alphabets.
And the RR.
Yes. So Farouk Ahmed called out Dangote Refinery, accusing them of importing adulterated petroleum products. You know, it was a whole brouhaha. Eventually, Dangote went to town on him, and big guy, the presidency intervened, and so this committee was investigating that whole matter. And so some called for the sack of Farouk, and others feel it shouldn't be sacked, including the NNPC chairman. I think this also shows that this is an industry that is shrouded in sometimes secrecy and a lot of dirty dealings. And so it's not easy to investigate this industry and go scot-free. That we do not know much, but there's definitely things fishing there, Chooks, don't you think?
Yes, as a reporter who covered the National Assembly, I can tell you for free that money must have changed hands. I can tell you that for free. So the truth is, whenever there's a problem, there are lawmakers who approach some of the parties to say, okay, we can do this, we can do that. You understand? And that I understand. We're still investigating this story. And the story has trickled down, has snowballed into a very, very big problem between the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. Because, some of the principal officers appear to have taken sides in the matter. And that is not good for the legislature. During military rule, the only difference between military rule, the major difference is that the military, you have the Armed Forces Ruling Council, which combines the executive and legislative functions, if you remember. So then you have courts stay. So, but in democracy, we have three arms of government. That should be independent. But several lawmakers, I understand, they approached some of these parties and say, if you give us money, we'll be able to do this. And that was why several members of the committee were issuing statements and forming cliques around, and they were going behind to collect money. And that was why the Speaker said, no, this cannot continue. Let us, and understand it led into a very, very big, huge disagreement between the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker. And that's why Speaker said, I'm the chairman of the House Selection Committee. I reserve the right to appoint whatever committee.
And disband.
And then now, people from the other side too are also accusing the Speaker of bad faith, that why should the Speaker disband. But I can tell you for free that at the center of this is money. Money has exchanged hands, and several lawmakers have been compromised.
So people that are supposed to be performing oversight functions on the executive, on the agencies, seem to be compromised. That's what we're hearing here, Ndi.
Well, until proven. I let it on the...
No, and there's division
alleged,
division amongst them.
But my thinking, I was laughing when I was reading it and you were talking about it. Yeah. One thing is clear. Something is not right. Yeah. When you'd say and you're shooting yourself in the leg because you said now, okay, now we have dissolved it. Now we want to appoint experts,
yes,
people of accountability.
Yeah.
And the question will be, were you sleeping where you appointed the other people?
I was going to say that, yes.
And it doesn't make sense.
Because the truth is that statement damaged the reputation of the house.
Yes, because
you said if you said people of integrity, you know, it shows that those who are there or those who are there,
expertise and competence.
Yes.
And these are your colleagues, you know. So what are you telling us?
But sorry. Let me quickly add this. The problem too is with Nigerians. So the truth is, if lawmakers, I pity them. Because people, especially lawmakers from around the North Central. No, I'll tell you why. No, I'll tell you why. You see, I mean, let's be very fair too. You see, because even the citizenry, they do not understand the role of lawmakers. You see, if you like, I had this lawmaker from Anambra State. You know, he was a very fantastic lawmaker. You know, bills, everything. You understand? But people are not interested in lawmaking. You know, that's the citizens, the electorate.
They
want to, or maybe they do not understand.
They don't understand. What they want is, they have naming ceremonies. You come there and give them money. You know, their child is going back to school. If you don't give them money, these same people go to beer parlors and start running down these lawmakers. So to prevent that, and that's why the lawmakers are under tremendous pressure. Every launching of a church or a mosque, they are invited to chair such occasions. So they're under pressure. And that's why to cut corners or to make ends meet, they have to go and hand in glove with some of these agencies so that they can.
I cannot pity them on that basis. I appreciate where you're coming from.
It's not about pity. We're just discussing
we're not going to, like they say, there's a way they say it in Igbo. I can't say it in Igbo here. Okay, you don't because of war.
To the gate,
no.
Okay.
You can't because of bullets, not go to the war. You know. There's always going to be pressure in life, constance.
Right.
We are under pressure.
Right.
So if you're going to, because of pressure, keep on cutting corners, then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
You've got to get to a place, whether in our system or wherever. I understand pressure. You've got to get to a place where things must begin to change. Yeah. And it starts with you and I appreciate, I was over the weekend.
I'm sure you're under pressure.
Okay.
I'm under pressure.
You wake up by 4 a.m. in the morning
from friends and family.
to be here?
I am under pressure. So
Okay, let's
even
move
not pressure from family. At
Let's
times
move on.
I said, no,
Even schoolmates.
What are you talking about?
Okay, let's move on to the next story. Okay, we have Punch to look at this morning. Punch, military talks tough as pro-Russian rallies spread. DHQ, that's Defense Headquarters, hunts protest sponsors. Governors summon emergency security meeting. Russia disowns protesters. Police arrest over 30. Well, the force spokesman actually said that 873 other protesters have been arrested, including a tailor who was arrested with a large number of flags in Kano. President Tinubu has directed a crackdown. The service chiefs have briefed the president. You know, I'm sure the security agencies have, intelligence report on what is going on whether this is a serious case or people just, flying flags without understanding the implications, what they're doing, whether this is out of ignorance. If there is a more sinister move or a more sinister activity going on, I'm sure the security agencies know. And so the Chief of Defense Staff yesterday, General Christopher Musa, addressed the country and said this is a treasonable offense. Jokes.
Yes, I must commend the military chief coming out to speak out. You see, and I must also commend the military for staying out of these protests. You know what they've done. If you
for now,
if you drive around town, you see, I like what the Guards Brigade, what they're doing. You know, you go to Nasarawa State, and then you go to Niger State. You know, they're stationed and they're trying to be as neutral as possible. But then look at what happened. You know, a tailor with a large cachet of flag of
Russian flags.
Bale of clothes making Syrian flags. You know. It's very sinister.
Maybe he's just making a business.
No, don't say that. Sorry,
right.
Don't say that, because you see, every tailor is overwhelmed, particularly in the north. Customers, they give you clothes to sew. You say, okay, come back in 2 weeks. Then for someone to sit down, buys material, bills of material, and starts sewing Russian flag. And don't also forget that symbols are not as important as the meaning they convey.
Right.
Look at what Russia has been accused of doing around Africa. You know, most of the coups in West Africa.
Wagner mercenaries.
Exactly. So for a nobody, quote and unquote, to be sowing Russian flags in Nigeria, you know, the military did what was expected. You know, territorial aggression, external aggression, and that's what the military has said. No, we're not part of this.
We'll speak more on this.
Yes.
We'll take a break there and come back. We continue. Stay with us. Don't go away. Yeah, glad to have you back. Last, before we left, you were talking about the meeting. The FEC meeting was cancelled for the security meeting with the security chiefs, and CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, came out, Musa, to speak about the fact that you can't be carrying a Russian flag on Nigerians, so that's a treasonable offense. But more importantly, it's not just enough to speak. Some of these things need to be investigated. Right. Go to the root and find out who is doing that. I mean, because this takes away from the real protest, which is #EndBadGovernance. Okay,
so still on that story, someone asked on social media, if carrying a country's flag is an offense, how about wearing a dress made of another country's flag? Here, it is a little bit different, because when you are flying a flag, in this case, during a protest, there seems to be a political undertone or political move going on there. However, if on a daily basis you wear an attire that has a country's flag,
it's your business.
You're just wearing an attire. There's no particular occasion to that. This one, what is going on in the country is different, and that's why the president was briefed, and the army chief or chief of defense staff is saying that something needs to be done about it. Anyway, let's move on quickly to Guardian newspaper. In the Guardian, federal government prioritizes NAS state house spending amid MDA's funding crisis. Let's first look at all the numbers in this report. I'm pulling that up. Guardian did a very good job here. So it says on the front page of the Guardian there, it says widening gap between expenditure and revenue nears crisis level, leaving FG with a spending shortfall of over 50% in H1 2024. Let's look at other numbers here. National Assembly already gobbed 86.2 billion naira. Presidential fleet 13.86 billion naira. State House 40.5 billion naira. Total released funds to MDAs in H1 9.53 trillion, and then total funds for MDAs in 2024 38.8 trillion. So that's a far cry from what they're supposed to release. Well, the overarching point of this article is that government is prioritizing political operations while critical agencies are facing funding shortfall. Chooks.
Yes, exactly. And it's in fact, I ran into a lawmaker at some time ago, several years ago, who lamented that if the president does not have his way in terms of appointing the National Assembly leadership, that they suffer. But whenever they are person, the president's choice is the Speaker and the Senate President, that they enjoy, because whatever they ask, whatever they demand, usually the demands are usually met by the executive. So it's like scratching my back and I scratch your back. The executive wants to keep the lawmakers happy, so that whatever request they also make, they speedily pass these requests. Cast your mind back to when people like Chibo Kadibu or Pius Aim was Senate President. Things were a lot different,
Yes.
Very, very different.
That was also a different party.
You say what?
It was a different party.
No, it was a different party.
Yes.
But the truth was, the president at the time had no hand in the emergence. Even the speaker,
right.
Now the late.
They were very independent.
Exactly.
Yes.
Naba.
Omar Gali Naba.
So apparently learning from that, they said a bird that knows that the hunter.
Even during Namani's own.
No. Namani, yes. They feel that they said the bird, proverbial bird that said, okay, this hunter has learned to shoot without missing, so he learns to fly without perching. So not just at the federal level, even the states. So governors and presidents have learned to say, okay, they want their own houseboys, become leader of the
Well,
assembly
well,
in the
right,
state,
you know.
whatever they want, they can go to bed asleep.
So let's look at this. National Assembly, State House, and Presidential Fleet are receiving in total 140.56 billion from January to June. I think this is partly why people feel that their leaders are completely out of touch and totally jaded, indeed.
Exactly. Listen to this. Against the backdrop of poor funding, the government continues to prioritize political office operations at the cost of starving critical agencies and infrastructure. Heavy ministries with the National Assembly, State House, and Presidential Air Fleet receiving 140.56 billion naira. When Keistama assumed office, what he said was no more politics of performance, of political performance, but politics of service. He's come to serve the people. You see, this is why you cannot say anything to the people who have risen up to protest against, and this is a clear case of bad governance.
And to add to that, almost all Nigerians' foreign missions have not been funded since beginning of the year. The Bureau of Public Sector Reforms received zero funding also, and a lot of MDAs have not received any allocation for 6 months.
I mean, listen.
That is critical.
I mean, listen to this. Agricultural research, foreign missions get zero funding.
Right.
How does agricultural research get zero funding? Stakeholders fear regulatory crisis in oil sector. Disregard for the PIA that was just signed in order to help in the petroleum industry, and then Nigeria loses $7.2 billion to underproduction in 6 months. You cannot explain this away.
No, you can't.
And that's why when people like additional criticize the government for importing food stuff and said that this cannot solve the problem.
Yeah, that's
AFDB. Yes, exactly. There's a research institute called River Basin District in Girion, is in Kogi State. You know, I used to farm there. If you go there,
you're a farmer too.
No, yeah. If you go there, you whip for you whip for.
We know where to go for food.
You whip for Nigeria. You whip for Nigeria. You see how much government invested in years, particularly during the military regime. You go to Omo in Anambra State, they have gigantic rice mill. River Basin authorities are dead. You go to Naifo in Edo State, where we're supposed to be planting, raising palms. You know, it's dead. You go to Crane in Ibadan, Cocoa Research Institute of Nigeria, it's dead. You understand? Basically, I'm virtually dead. So we spoke about travel advisory to Nigerians to contact the High Commission in the UK.
Yes.
The same High Commission they've not funded.
Funded, yes.
I mean, these are the issues. If you look at the number of persons captured, you know, 360 House of Reps members, 109 senators, about 500 or something, then how many people do you have working in the villa?
Right.
There are less than 1,000, everything put together.
Okay.
Let's
move on to the next newspaper.
It's a dangerous trend.
Yeah.
We can't continue like this.
Well, that's why there's protests, right?
Like
yeah, that's why the protests are going on. Let's see what transpires or happens after the protest, whether it makes any difference. Well, let's look at the international papers for you. We'll start with Daily Graphic. Road to Election 2024. Daily Graphic is from Ghana. As far as rights of minority parties, it says the influence of smaller political parties have diminished with time, despite the promise that attended their formation and inauguration. It says the capacity influence is narrowing, narrowing the space for pretenders. So it's essentially saying that a lot of the parties are pretenders. You know, so for the December 2024 elections, there are also prospective independent candidates in Ghana. In a very interesting topic in the democratic space with a multi-party system. In most countries, you have two dominant parties. Every other party seems to be on the fringe and, you know, barely surviving. But in our elections last year in Nigeria, we found that we had three, you know, solid parties, which in the beginning people thought, oh, forget about the third party, it's nothing. And at the end of the day, they pulled over 6 million votes. So you had more options. People had more options. So would you say that you want or prefer just a two-party system, or you want a situation where there is an opportunity for independent candidates and other parties instead of just two dominant ones, Chooks?
I think in the early 90s, then head of state, Babangida came up with two-party system, the SDP and the NRC. And then later in 1999, we came up with multiple party systems. But I think only three parties met the requirements, PDP, APP, and Alliance for Democracy. But then later people decided and said, no, let's open up the space. And then now you have a plethora of parties. And some of them are run by just one man. You know,
Yes.
one man is a national chairman.
In Nigeria, yes.
In Nigeria, so they have a house in Guarimpa. They have a house
Yes.
in Guarimpa.
Yeah.
Every year, every quarter, they get allocation from
the federal government.
from
yes.
INEC. You know, so and they feed fat. And then what they do, then they go into negotiations with anybody who is the governor or president. You know, who support you. You know, and the rest. So it's a tragedy because we need to really come up with homegrown system in Africa. Because on the one hand, we're trying to cut costs. Yeah, independent candidacy, yes, but we all know the cost of printing ballot materials in this part of the world. It's humongous. And if you allow independent candidacy, you have maybe 1,000 persons on the ballot paper, and they will go to court to say no, because my name was not on the ballot paper. You know, this is non and of no effect. So, but it's interesting. You know, Ghana too the same problem, and they're also trying to tinker to see how best. You know, should we have two parties? Should we have three parties? Should we have multiple parties? You know, it's a question, you know, that we have to answer with time.
Well, since three parties already occurred in Nigeria last year, I think one of the things that we should be also talking about is, at the end of the day, the president won just over 30% of the votes. Yeah. And, you know, by law, he is the highest, you know, he scored the highest, exactly. Yes. He scored the highest, but that is not 50% of Nigerians. So it means that we should have in our law that you must have at least 50% of the votes. If not, there should be a second round. You know, if you don't do that, then that means the person that is the president and running the country is running with minority vote, it's a minority president or a minority party. Indeed.
Two of you, interesting contributions. What I take away from the point you've made is system. You can't, because take, for example, France, the RN party suddenly began to grow. Then take another example in South Africa, where for the first time, ANC could not make the majority. Why? Because of minority parties. Even in Comto Sizwe, that just came up the other day because, of course, in the influence of Jacob Zuma, they were able to cut the votes of ANC. So minority parties, good. They play a role all over the world, in Britain, in America. But the thing that should be tinkered, what Chooks pointed out about, if you have parties that just come to play around, pick money from INEC, and then fund themselves, that's where the tinkering of the system comes in. But if you take away the other parties in a democracy, people will tell you you are disenfranchising or letting people not to have, because democracy, people should be able to, you know, association, freedom of association. So that might be a problem, but it is tinkering the system to make sure that those who are in for good, even if it is to win
council seat.
If not just what do you call that party? The third one will be
Labour Party.
At least they got a governor. Yes. In Abia State, and I hear that he's doing well
in a very short time. So if they had more time,
that's my state.
Right. Yeah, well, okay.
And congratulations. They talk about my state and say we have had bad leaders over time. But this guy has got to change.
We have a few minutes left. Let's look at Daily Mirror quickly. Rioters target Asian and Black. Daily Mirror, United Kingdom. Rioters target Asian and Black communities. NHS chief says staff feel afraid and unwelcome. Stammer to mobilize army of specialist corps. Families targeted by far-right thugs have told how they are very scared to leave their homes amid the hatred gripping Britain. I mean, the riots in the UK have continued. You know, let's remind you what started it. The 3 children were killed, and the information went out that they were killed by Muslims, and so the targeting started, the misinformation, and so this has been going on since last week, and you know, really has gotten out of hand. We've talked about it, you know, earlier before, but Europe is changing, sentiments are changing, and that this is what they have to deal with. Very briefly, so we can go to the next topic, Chooks.
Yes, yeah, we spoke about that. Not just a Muslim that was accused of doing that, a Muslim immigrant. So you see that naturally asylum seekers have been targeted.
He's not.
He's not. He's not.
Yes,
I mean, it's
so
fake
that's
news.
the
Fake news. That's
misinformation.
misinformation.
Yes.
So it shows that there's this phobia for migrants all over the world. People want to label people, give a dog a bad name. Exactly, to be able to kill it. I mean, to justify why they should kill this dog. So it's sad. It's sad. But I thought we'd talk about.
Let me bring you to the next story because we don't have time. So let's go to Punch again. Let's pull up Punch. So protest rock Bangladesh. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina fled the country after weeks of sustained protests following her refusal to resign. The protesters demanded from day one that she had to leave office, she had to resign. She did not. The response was a massive clampdown on people. It was reported that between 90 and 300 people were killed, but these people kept at it, stayed on the streets. And at the end of the day, yesterday, the woman had to flee for her life.
Resigned?
Resigned and fled for her life in a helicopter. Report says she landed in India.
Now, just a word.
People's power.
Good. Just a word concerning, now juxtapose what we're witnessing in Britain with one of the leading aspirants in the American coming elections. He's talking about whether somebody is black or not black. That should never be mentioned at all. Was it late Martin Luther who said, it's not about color, it's about what you can do.
The
content of your heart. All right, going to this, like you just said, people's power. This happened in Bangladesh. Leaders all over the world, particularly in Africa, even in Nigeria, should begin to learn lessons. It won't continue the way you think it's going for long. You can't take people for a ride for too long. These people stood up, even with and really, if you want to achieve great things, sacrifice is very important. With 300 people dead, the people went to the State House.
Yeah.
And the woman had no other
choice
but to leave that place.
It means that, the people are more in number than the leaders. And the interesting thing about Sheikh Hasina is that she was an icon, a pro-democracy icon. Yeah. She led the economic boom in that country. What this indicates is that power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. So apparently, or probably, she has outstayed her welcome. It was time to leave. She was still there. And at some point, I think leaders begin to play God, and it becomes complicated for the country, Chooks. Yeah. You will have barely a minute.
She did very, very well. I mean, to be fair, if you compare Bangladesh and Nigeria, apart from they gained independence in 1971, Nigeria 1960, but you see, they are one of the most popular, I think about the 8th most populous country in the world.
171 million people.
Exactly. The woman did so well, economically.
Yes.
But the moment she started shutting down critics, you post something, they came with several laws, anti-internet. They shut down the internet, thinking that it was going to stop. But interestingly, on Sunday she was prime minister. On Monday she was a refugee in India.
That's a good way to put it.
Yes.
But again, the point is leaders should take a lesson. Yeah. You're there at the behest of the people. Yeah. It is about service. We'll leave it here. Thank you so much, Constance and Akonaya.
Thank you.
Akonna.
Thank you.
No, I know it's Akonna, but what it means is Akonaya.
I see. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so that's that's knowing your language.
Thank you.
All right, that's it on Daybreak this morning. Thank you for watching. Next is the morning show, and on a rise every day indeed does matter. I am Ndi Amogu, thanking you for watching. Bye.